like to call this meeting to order of the March 12, 2018 work session for the York County School Board. Before we begin, we have a few presentations to do, but first I'd like to mention that our prayers and condolences go out to the family of the student that passed away at Queens Lake Middle School about a week and a half ago unexpectedly. Sorry to hear when anything like that happens, but I do want to mention that we're certainly thinking about the family. Also, we're trying to put together a training for our school board. Unfortunately, we had to cancel one of the dates we had, but we have a couple Friday dates that were available, May 25th and June 8th. What does the board think about those two Fridays, or is that good or bad for any of them?
May 25th is Memorial Day.
It is Memorial Day weekend, and that's not good for you, Dr. Shandor.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we're probably looking more at June 8th, which is not the best for me, but I think I can maybe make some things work out. We'll see. But before I do that, is that good for the other board members?
It's for me. Whatever.
Okay.
It looks like it will be, yes.
All right, well, I'll see what I can do to work out June 8th.
Touch base with Mr. Medford.
Yeah, and as also to mention that about Mr. Medford, he couldn't be here tonight. He was traveling, he got his flight changed, but it still wouldn't allow him to be here in time. He's actually getting ready to be back in the air now again, I think, flying to this nice weather we have here in Newport News. So he's out traveling right now, but he couldn't get his flight correct or right to make the meeting. So we're going to move ahead and move on to the presentations then. We have several presentations lined up. The first one is an update on our FY19 operating budget. Dr. Shandor, would you please share it?
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Good evening, school board members. I'll turn this, it'll be a brief presentation. I'll turn it over to Mr. Bowen. He's going to provide an update on the operating budget.
Thank you, Dr. Shandor, Mr. Richardson, members of the board. As you know, the General Assembly adjourned on Saturday. I had hoped to present an update on the state budget this evening. However, they adjourned without passing a budget. So there's no new information I really have at this point. Moving forward, what will happen is the General Assembly or governor will have to call a special session. I received word late this afternoon from the Virginia Municipal League that they don't anticipate that special session occurring until early April. So the board will adopt its budget on the 26th with no new information. So, but any questions or comments about that?
Can we identify any specific issues that were hangups? Were there any school-related issues that were a problem?
The major obstacle is the Medicaid expansion.
Right, but nothing that dealt with education, so everybody seemed to be in consensus
Right.
on education. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Bowen, and I see that you also have the next topic, but I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, so we'll turn it over to Mr. Bowen. He has three topics that he's going to discuss related to financial matters. Mr. Bowen?
Yeah, so three topics this evening. The first is the retiree health care credit. This is a benefit that is offered through the Virginia retirement system. And for school divisions, I want to make this clarification. For school divisions, there's two groups of employees, and I'll call them Group 1 and Group 2. Group 1 is the teachers, administrators, our paraeducators, secretaries, and most of our school board office officials. The Group 2 is, includes our bus drivers, our food service workers, our custodians, and our maintenance, trade, and IT technicians. The retiree health care credit benefit is currently offered to our Group 1 employees, but it's not offered to our Group 2 employees. When I was doing my research on this, I checked with the county. The county participates in this benefit and offers it to their employees. We offer it to our Group 1 employees, but we don't offer it. The Group 2 employees are the only employees within the county and schools that has not offered this benefit. And it's, to just give you an overview of the benefit itself, for the Group 1 employees, it pays $4 a month for each year of service, and you have to work a minimum of 15 years. So Group 1 employee can earn $60 a month at a minimum, and there's no cap on the maximum. So if an employee works 40 years, they can earn $160 a month. For the Group 2 employees, the benefit pays $1.50 for each year of service for more than 15 years. So they can earn a minimum of $22.50 a month and a maximum of $45 a month. There's a difference in the benefit. We didn't select that benefit. That's the benefit that's offered by VRS. But what I'm recommending this evening is that the board consider offering that benefit to employees. And if that's something that the board elects to do, at the next work session, or I'm sorry, at the next general meeting, I'll have a VRS resolution. This is an irrevocable resolution. So once we agree, we can't step out. It impacts about 300 employees, and it's going to cost us about $35,000 a year. And I would recommend that we make this effective July 1. And the other good thing about this is that our current retirees would also be eligible for this benefit.
Okay, okay.
So any comments
Well,
on?
it's a good plan.
So 35,000 would cover current retirees, and they would be able to, I guess it would be like a grandfather type thing, or how does that work?
Well, the way we understand it is that once the resolution's passed, we send it to VRS. VRS has the list of current retirees who are eligible that have worked that 15 years, and they would contact those individuals and provide that benefit. I believe the benefit's a month in arrears, so it would be effective August 1st.
All right.
The one nice thing that we as a board, where in the years past, we had to cut the budget or just hold on to the budget, we were looking at, or as far as advancements or increase in salary and so forth, we were looking at other options that we could pass on to employees, say if it's not cash, what else can it be? And this is a nice day, I think, that works. When we were doing we wanted to hold on the insurance increase to employees. So this is another, I think, added piece that would support our
And a
employees.
reasonable amount of money
Yes,
for
exactly.
for those employees to make it more equitable for everybody. I like that. Yeah.
Okay. The second item tonight addresses School Board Policy DLC, and this is travel expense reimbursements. Our current policy requires for an employee that's traveling on behalf of the school division, and they incur meals and overnight stay, they have to submit itemized receipts to be reimbursed. What staff wants to recommend is that we change that from actual receipts to a per diem reimbursement basis. This is something similar that the county does, the state government does. And one of the things that we found, or we find in the processing of reimbursements when we require the actual receipt, is that the receipt that's given to us by the employee is generally the wrong one. It's not the itemized receipt, it's the total of the credit card with the signature. So when that happens, we have to halt the processing, send it back, the employee has to contact, hopefully they can get a copy of that receipt, and then it has to go through the process again. This process will just streamline the whole reimbursement process, not only for the employee, but also for the finance department. And this is a standard practice. Standard business practice. So we would like to bring that policy, the first reading at the March 26th regular meeting.
So in that situation, if you know that the employee is traveling, they will get the per diem up front and then submit any.
At the end of the travel, they'll submit their reimbursement, at which point they'll claim the per diem
You
basis.
still get it at the end, it's just.
Okay,
per diem.
okay.
We used to get it up front.
And I'm
before they
thinking
would-
for employees that are traveling for us and may not have that cash available to do that, but you still reimburse at the end,
Well,
okay?
we do
I
make,
was thinking-
we do make special circumstances for those who don't have the funds to
Okay,
travel. in
okay.
advance.
Where would you get your rate scale? They'll be similar to what the government uses?
Yes, we would use the GSA rate scale. We had our federal grants folks talk to the feds, and that was the allowable, that's what they recommended. We looked at what the state was doing, and the state also follows the GSA rate scale. So that's what we would propose adopting.
I just want to reiterate that this is a common practice, that not only the county is doing it, the state's doing it, the federal government's doing it. This is just a easier way to streamline things and
Yes.
come more in line with what everybody else is doing too. Any other questions?
And the last topic this evening is just informational. The Finance Department has begun its end-of-year review. And what this entails is the finance group staff, we're meeting weekly, we're reviewing all of our accounts, we're looking at our end-of-year balances, trying to determine if there are funds available for end-of-year projects. There's two processes that I wanted to talk about this evening. First, that's our standard process, and typically through that end-of-year review, When we identify funds, typical projects might be textbooks and IT equipment, buses and bus parts and supplies. As we start to identify dollars that are available, we'll start to prioritize those projects. And any significant projects, $50,000 or above, will come through on the resolution for significant expenditures. The second piece I want to talk about was a list of facility projects. We have a number of projects that we're looking at trying to complete this summer. Dr. James and Mr. Sherhart are working on that list. These are items that don't rise to the level of the CIP. They're not 20-year projects, and because of that, they can't be funded with debt service, so we have to use cash. The county has provided that cash to us, so we're working on a prioritized list, and we hope to get those projects. And as we see those projects come forward, we again will those items will be listed on the resolution for significant procurements for your approval.
And the dollars are from end of the year, from last year. Mr. Morgan gave $750,000 to put in our construction reserve fund.
Very good.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Any other questions for Mr. Bowen? Thank you very much for that presentation. Appreciate that. Our next topic is Learning Commons presentation. I'll ask Dr. Shandor to share more about that topic.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Board members, I'm going to ask Dr. Cagle if she can please come to the podium. She's the Associate Director for K-12 Academic Services. She's going to provide some information on our efforts to redesign the library and media centers at Bruton, Grafton, Tabb, and York High Schools. Dr. Cagle.
Good evening, Mr. Richardson, members of the board, and Dr. Shandor. This evening, I will provide information on the division's plan to redesign the library media centers at 4 of our high schools. The presentation will focus primarily on the collection of student and staff feedback, as well as next steps in the process. As you can see from the images on the screen, our York County School Division libraries have a large number of print resources for our students. However, the layout and design of these spaces has not changed much since many of us were students. That's because libraries have traditionally served as the central information repository for the school and were built around the printed word. They have often been seen as a space for quiet, individualized learning and a location for finding information in print. In order to prepare college and career-ready graduates who are proficient in critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, and citizenship, it is important to reevaluate the current practices and uses of our library media centers to best meet our students' educational needs. This is why libraries across the country are being transformed into Learning Commons. The Learning Commons model is designed to empower active and collaborative learning. It is a dynamic, comfortable space where students can discover and create with their peers. Based on these changes, central office administrators conducted a situation analysis in early fall to explore possibilities for re-imaging high school media centers in York County. During this process, the group assessed priorities and planned next steps, which included student and leadership team forums at Bruton, Grafton, Tabb, and York High Schools. This chart outlines the activities that took place during both student and staff forums. You will see many similarities between the two, however, you will note some differences. Both student and leadership team groups began with Dr. Shandor sharing the purpose of the forums. They also viewed a video on Learning Commons, and both groups received research on the purpose of these spaces. Following this, students and staff participated in an activity which allowed them the opportunity to provide input on a redesigned media center. In addition to those activities, students shared how often they use the school's media center and answered follow-up questions if they are not visiting the library on a regular basis. Similarly, staff members were asked to give their perceptions on when, where, and how their students engage in research, collaboration, and work production, as well as how often they, the teachers, use the school's media center for student learning. It was important for us to determine how the students are currently using the Media Center to support the 5 Cs mentioned earlier, and how often they are accessing it. The 68 students who participated in the student forums represented a variety of interests and demographics. This chart shows the responses to the online poll where they shared how often they use the Media Center. Student responses showed that they are more apt to use the Media Center to study and research, whereas they are less likely to use the space for collaboration. Following the poll, students engaged in an interactive online activity to give us reasons if they are not using the Media Center regularly. Some of the most popular responses are captured in the phrases listed on this slide. Students shared that they don't have enough time in the day and they are busy with sports and clubs after school. They also noted that much of their work can be done online and many prefer using their own technology, including phones and personal computers. Some students stated that the space was too quiet for those who like to talk, while others shared that there is too much noise when there are classes in the library. Students also shared a variety of places where they do research, study, collaborate with peers, and produce work. Students mentioned working at home, and many stated reasons for this were time, as well as the use of their own devices and comfort. And as you can see, coffee shops and public libraries are popular spaces for students to complete assignments. Members of each school's leadership team also shared their perceptions of where, when, and how students engage in these activities, with responses very similar to those of the student. Classroom teachers serving on the school leadership teams answered questions regarding how they use the school's Media Center for students to research, collaborate, and produce work. This graph shows the staff responses. Although the responses show limited teacher use of the Media Center with their students, I want to make you aware that there was a small sample size, and it was not necessarily representative of those teachers who would most often use the library. All members of the leadership team listed other ways the Media Centers are used throughout the day. In addition to being a print-rich environment for students, our Media Centers also house professional libraries and equipment for teacher and student use. Because of their size, these are ideal places for meetings and professional development. Our final activity was one that created both excitement and great conversation. Both groups were asked to brainstorm items they felt were important for the redesign of the Learning Commons. These are listed in order of frequency for each group. As you can see, 6 of the top 8 items were similar between the two groups. Students and staff asked for more technology to include laptops, desktop computers, e-books, iPads, camera phones, and smart TVs. They requested comfortable, colorful chairs and bigger tables. They also noted the need for movable furniture and tables with outlets. Extended hours included a study hall or free period, access during lunch or elective classes, as well as access before and after school and on weekends. Both groups identified places for students to study quietly, as well as collaborate with peers. Clear boards and tables, glass walls, and whiteboards were also requested for students to work on projects and share ideas. Our next steps include sharing forum data and our work thus far with our high school principals, who will in turn share with their school communities. Following this, students and staff will create and share a prioritized list that will be used by architects to develop sketches for review. That concludes the presentation. At this time, I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I just had one. Back to your page 10, the staff input and other uses. So the meetings, small group testing, remediation, and after-school tutoring, those items, that can still be used in the new format that you are.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we
foresee a possibility of having these extended hours like they requested on here? I mean, I think that's, I can see it being utilized. I'm not sure how we go about doing that.
Well, I think that's what the power of the forums were. So, we want to custom build these so our kids and our staff can tell us, what's going to meet the needs of the kids in the school. So we're certainly open. I think all the ideas are good ideas at this point in time.
It's exciting.
Very much so.
Will it be in conjunction with the library, or would the library sort of go away, or
The library would transform into a learning commons concept.
so what happens to all the printed materials?
Yeah, it's going, we've already spoken with the librarians about this. It's gonna be, looking at inventorying what we already have and how it's being used. There were students who said, please don't get rid of the books. And others said, there are a lot of those books we don't read and we need to look at those. And then there will be a place set aside for those books that we know the students will use, especially like research but also the enjoyable books they like to read for pleasure too.
Sounds fascinating. Looks great.
It's exciting.
Yes.
It is.
And I just have one comment. I'm excited about it also. I think the charging stations, the technology, the smart boards, that sort of thing is all great ideas. So I'm excited about seeing how this is going to transform. So any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Cagle.
Thank you, Dr. Cagle, and for sharing all the information and everything on this topic. Next on the agenda, we have an update from Student Services, Dr. Shandor.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. I'm going to ask Dr. Elaine Gould if she'll please come to the podium. She's going to provide a brief summary on how YCSD promotes the emotional well-being of our students and provides professional development for staff around the topic of mental health. If you recall, this was requested by Mr. Richardson and board members at the last meeting. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Gould.
Good evening, Mr. Richardson, members of the board, and Dr. Shandor. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you information regarding measures implemented by the York County School Division to promote the positive social and emotional well-being of our students, and how the division has provided professional development opportunities for staff around the topic of mental health. The information I share tonight will be presented within a tiered system of support framework. As you can see by the graphic, in a tiered system, the majority of our efforts all fall into the green zone, or Tier 1. At least 80% of our students respond to the core social, emotional supports that are available to all students. For students who require support in the yellow zone, or Tier 2, more targeted early interventions address student mental health and behavioral concerns before they escalate to the crisis level. A small percentage of our students require intensive Tier 3 supports that may include community-based services for students and their families. In addition to the student supports, YCSD provides teachers, administrators, and staff with professional development opportunities on the topics of mental health and its impact on a student's ability to learn and to be successful in school. I'll begin with Tier 1, and one of the largest components of Tier 1 is professional development. At YCSD's 2017 convocation, the keynote speaker, Dr. Allison Sampson Jackson, introduced YCSD teachers, administrators, and staff to the research regarding adverse childhood experiences and how the stress associated with these experiences adversely impacts a child's neurological development, their ability to learn, and mental health. Adverse childhood experiences include, but are not limited to, abuse, neglect, substance abuse, mental illness, separation or divorce, and incarceration. Dr. Jackson shared that approximately 70% of the general population has experienced at least one adverse childhood experience, and 16% have experienced 4 or more prior to the age of 18. As the number of adverse childhood experiences increase, the more significant the impact on a child's life. Dr. Jackson challenged us all to take one action: connect with students. 70% of people who change a negative behavior do so because of a connection they made with someone who inspired them to change. Staff were deeply inspired by Dr. Jackson's message. After convocation, the school board office received an email from a teacher. As a drama teacher, I have a wonderful opportunity to make connections daily. I approached this year with a desire to love my students with more intention. However, after Thursday's session, I now consider it my mission and calling. Dr. Allison Jackson's influence and inspirational message has now become a defining moment with answers that I have been seeking for many years. Positive connections between students and adults are an essential component to creating a positive school culture in which students feel connected, supported, safe, and empowered to report safety concerns. Tier 1 is all about making those connections, and YCSD connects with students in multiple ways. Our character education and bullying prevention programs engage students through assemblies, classroom lessons, and service learning. And the school's counselor, psychologist, or social worker is available for any student experiencing stress at school, at home, or in the community. It is critical that our staff has the knowledge and skills to support students who are experiencing mental health concerns. So I would like to focus your attention on the professional development that YCSD provides. Staff have received mental health first aid training to learn about and assist an individual with mental health or substance use issues, and Crisis Prevention Institute training focuses on strategies for safely diffusing hostile or violent behavior at the earliest possible stage. Tier 2 interventions are provided to students who require additional support beyond Tier 1. YCSD teachers and staff identify students experiencing difficulties and implement interventions before behaviors escalate to the crisis level. These supports may be implemented by a school-based team or in collaboration with community partners. Level 1 and 2 threat assessments are completed by counselors and administrators to evaluate the level of known threat expressed by a student to self or others. YCSD's behavior support specialist is available to consult with school-based teams to implement positive behavioral supports for students demonstrating emotional and behavioral concerns. YCSD continues to strengthen its collaboration with the Department of Social Services to meet the needs of our students and their families. This collaboration may be a phone call to identify families in need or to mobilize school social workers to assess the family's level of need or connect them with appropriate community resources. For children exhibiting behaviors that put them at risk for more significant Tier 3 interventions, a team meeting may be held to identify school and community-based supports for students and families. For students who do not respond to Tier 1 or Tier 2 supports, more intensive Tier 3 interventions are implemented. These interventions may include referral to the Family Assessment and Planning Team. This team assesses the strengths and needs of youth and families and identifies available services. These interventions may include intensive in-home treatment or, in some cases, a residential placement outside of the community. In the event that a Level 1 or 2 threat assessment indicates a significant level of concern regarding a potential threat against students, staff, or self, a Level 3 threat assessment will be conducted by the school psychologist. Once completed, a threat assessment team meets to evaluate the level of threat, determine a course of action, and communicate information to relevant stakeholders. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share this information with you tonight. At this time, I will answer any questions you may have.
I would just like to comment that I was able to attend your convocation this year and listen to Dr. Allison Jackson speak. She spoke on some of her own experiences and how when she was younger and she was in a place that they put her that she would actually get in trouble just to go see this specific counselor that she connected with and that helped her along the way. And then she ended up going back to school and getting her doctorate, and now she's teaching it and going across the country, and what an inspiring speaker she was. She definitely was.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
The level 1 and 2 threat assessments are done by,
They would be done by a school counselor or an administrator. And then the level 2 is typically done, say, by an administrator or a school counselor. They may bring in the school psychologist to do a level 2, but the school psychologist is definitely involved.
so level 3 is always a school psychologist.
Yes, sir.
I think for me, and that was, because we have been through this several years back, look at behavioral mental health. I love the idea that you have that online or ongoing communication at the individual level to identify problems that our youth will come to school with. We see that more often than enough. And if we can be proactive and touch on some things early on. And listen to the first part of the presentation. So it depends on what the student is exhibiting, will depend on which tier you start with, because a student may just jump to tier 2 before you know.
And they do that assessment when they see the student. So for example, if a child is referred by a teacher or one of their friends, they would go to the school counselor and they would talk to them about the stress that they're experiencing either in the classroom, in school, in the community, or at home. And they do some initial assessment there. And once they do that, if it's something that they can support them with there, they would come up with some strategies with that student and talk about how they might be able to implement those to help themselves. However, if there's additional concerns, they might connect them to mental health professionals in the community or to the school psychologist for counseling.
I know we're bringing on another social worker, if I'm correct.
Once the budget gets passed.
And I'm going to be very frank, do we have enough staff to handle the student population that we have?
I'll let Elaine, Dr. Gould, if you can just share some numbers about each level we have in each of the schools.
Sure. In terms of counselors, we have 10 elementary school counselors. We have 9 counselors at the middle school level, and we have 14 and a half school counselors at the high school level, for a total of 33 and a half counselors. We have 7 school psychologists, and then we have 3 school social workers, and as you mentioned, we'll be adding another next year.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
No, I just want to make sure that we are being as proactive as we can, and if there needs to be another body, then so be it. Yeah, and it's something that you have to think about and push for what you think is important to have, and if we are comfortable with where we are. Okay.
I'd be interested to know, I don't know who would be you, Jim, you weren't here, it was 5 years ago. And what did our staffing look like in this area? I
I'll have
don't
to
know
ask
who
Dr.
would,
Guy, I wasn't here 5 years ago.
I'm just curious, I mean, were we?
Social workers, we had 2 social workers, and so we've gone to 3, and then we're going to 4. School counselors, we've added back a couple of positions that we lost during the recession. And then the school psychologists, the numbers are the same as they've been for some time. We have not increased that number. We didn't cut it during the recession, but we have not increased those numbers.
I'm gonna ask one more question, don't let it put you on the spot, because I don't think you can be able to answer me, but just,
Good luck.
you know, when I look at this, I always sort of, I look at the system here, and then I look at the tragedies that have happened, you know, in schools, and in my mind, I go, okay, if this had been in place in one of those schools, how successful perhaps would that have been? You know, I mean, it's kind of where the rubber meets the road. Is this going to,
And I don't know that you ever know in certain
you
situations.
don't, you don't, I guess it's
Hypothetical.
just sort of throw it out there to kind of ponder, because that's what it's all about. We need to learn from experiences, unfortunately, and,
So the whole idea is how do we be as proactive as we can? And that's where I am with as I said to Dr. Shandon when we talked today, I remember the pyramid from a previous presentation. So if someone, just typical person, looked at the pyramid, would they know what that pyramid meant? You know, do they understand what we do for our students to be as proactive as we can? And I think that's the biggest thing. Oftentimes your teachers are going to be the first connecting
Sure.
person. And then how they pull in the counselor and then the principal, and to keep that ball going, rolling. So I think, again, are we able to identify, do you have enough professional development hours? And, and that's being frank, what do we need to do to keep our people abreast of what's going on?
I was just going to share, and some other pieces that we have just initiated this year. We're working with another agency for therapeutic day treatment, but we're just in the infancy steps with regard to that at a couple of our schools. And that was in response to some of the needs that we were seeing specifically at a couple of our buildings. The other piece, and I think Dr. Butler will speak more to it in his presentation, but the relationships are the critical piece. The classroom teachers are the ones that are with the students day in, day out, and the relationship and having students comfortable reporting and sharing is part of the way that, one of the biggest ways we protect ourselves.
So I think one of the things we talked about some time back was, will a principal put all the teachers on the school bus and drive the teachers around to all the neighborhoods from whence the kids come? Some could be hotels, motels for all we know.
They are, yeah.
So that's real, that's real.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Dr. Gold.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
the presentation. So Dr. Shandor, I know at our last meeting, we asked you and your staff to present information not only on this last topic, but also on the next topic, on safety and security. But you had also already presented some of the same information we know back in January. But the presentation tonight, from what I understand, has a few additional talking points. But again, thank you and your staff for putting this together again for us at our request. But I just want to assure our parents, our students, and our staff that we're not reactive to things that are going on, but we're always proactive when it comes to school security, safety, and mental health. It's even part of our strategic plan, our goals that we have as a school board. Our executive team works close with our school leaders and our local emergency responders in developing those preventative measures and responding to crisis situations. So the most important thing we can do is to avoid complacency, I know. So Dr. Shandor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. As requested by the board, Dr. Aaron Butler, Director of School Administration, is going to come to the podium. He's going to provide an update on measures within York County School Division to ensure a safe school environment. So we did present this in the January work session. We're going to dive a little deeper into this discussion this evening. He's also going to provide information concerning the partnership that we have with the York-Poquoson Sheriff's Office, as well as the York County Department of Fire and Life Safety. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Butler.
Good evening, Mr. Richardson, members of the board, Dr. Shandor. I will provide an update concerning the school division's ongoing efforts to ensure safe and secure learning environments for all children and staff. This evening, I will provide an overview concerning safety procedures required by the Code of Virginia, current York County School Division practices and procedures to ensure student safety, and ways that the division engages in reflective practices to improve procedures and processes. Per the Code of Virginia, every school division is required to designate an emergency management official. The emergency manager is responsible for assisting school administrators with evaluating, implementing, and coordinating physical security improvements. In addition, the manager communicates with local law enforcement, fire and life safety officials, and school division personnel to monitor and survey individual school needs. Finally, the emergency manager, in collaboration with the director of school administration, leads to the school division's safety audit committee and directs all safety and emergency preparedness plans for the division and for schools. Currently, Joseph Schroeder, the occupational safety regulatory compliance specialist, serves in this capacity for our school division. Every year, the School Division Safety Audit Committee is required to assess school safety conditions using the appropriate survey tools designated by the Virginia Center for School and Campus Safety. There are 4 components to the School Safety Audit Survey that I will review with you this evening. Every school in Virginia is required to review and update their written school crisis, emergency management, and medical emergency response plans on an annual basis. These plans address staff actions during a crisis or emergency situation to manage school and student safety. Mr. Schroeder and his committee meet with every building administration team during the month of August to ensure safety plans are updated and adjusted based on school-based needs and legal requirements. The Virginia School Safety Survey is a web-based survey developed by the Virginia Center for School and Campus Safety to ensure that all public schools in the Commonwealth have conducted and submitted their individual school safety audit information by the statutory deadline. It is a tool to assist schools in the collection of individual school safety audit information and allows each school division to certify that all schools have completed the required updates to their crisis management plan and school safety checklists. All principals in York County are required to complete the survey, and Mr. Schroeder serves as the survey manager to ensure that all of our schools complete the survey by the September 29th deadline. The school division audit committee is composed of staff members from the York County School Division's Operations Department and officials from the York-Pocosin Sheriff's Office. The committee meets on a regular basis to review concerns, attend safety training sponsored by Virginia Department of Criminal Justice, and complete the school safety inspection checklist. The inspection checklist is a holistic report that assesses external and internal conditions on each school campus. In the last inspection, it was noted that landscaping choices were interfering with the line of sight for staff and posed a visual security concern. To address this, foliage was trimmed back in several school locations in response to the committee's recommendations. This checklist is required to be completed every 3 years. However, York County School Division goes beyond the state requirement and completes the checklist every school year to gather data and to guide safety improvements and security projects. In the spring of every school year, a climate survey developed through collaboration between the Virginia Department of Education and the Department of Criminal Justice is administered to secondary students on an alternating basis. On even-numbered years, all students in grades 9 through 12, including staff, are surveyed. In odd-numbered years, 7th and 8th grade students and teachers are surveyed. The survey explores student and teacher perceptions on such topics as bullying, harassment, safety, discipline practices, and overall school climate. The results of individual school populations are provided to building principals for review and for consideration. In addition to the state-required measures, the division ensures that every school has a plan for the supervision of students before, during, and after school. Examples of safety procedures include teacher monitoring and duty stations during the school day, supervision during lunch periods, and staff assistance and monitoring during dismissal and arrival. We see here a picture where teachers are monitoring students during a class change at Grafton Middle School. To facilitate immediate communication between schools, the school board office, law enforcement, and fire and life safety officials, the 800 megahertz radio is used during a crisis or emergency situation. Office staff and school administrators have all been trained on the proper use of the radio and are required to have the radio staffed at all times during the day. Every school and the YCSD School Board office are equipped with an audio-visual intercom system that allows staff to monitor and control visitor entry and control building access points. The system also allows staff to direct all visitors to the main office. As we see in the picture here, when someone comes up to the system, they press in and then a visual is shown to the person in the office for them to buzz in. Once visitors have entered the building, they are required to consent to an identification check using the IdentiKid system. The IdentiKid system is connected to the National Sex Offender Registry and provides school staff with a screening mechanism before allowing visitors contact with students and with staff. As provided in the York County School Division Employee Handbook, in order to promote safe learning environments, all employees are required to wear a photo ID badge while in school buildings or on school grounds. Employee badges allow staff access to their assigned school or areas where they have authorization to enter. Another important part of our safety plan is to ensure open communication between our families and the school. Our communication platform allows the division to quickly contact families through a variety of methods, through both phone, email, text, our app, or social media. Students, staff, and parents are encouraged to report any behavior or situation that causes them concern for student or school safety. Families and staff have several reporting options available to them, which include the YCSD hotline, which is listed on the board, the website, or the York County School Division app. The division continues the process of designing and installing security vestibules to direct visitors to the main office and provide an additional layer of security. We see in the picture above the security vestibule, which is located at Waller Mill Elementary School, which directs staff into the main office. York County School Division staff work in partnership with the York-Pocosin Sheriff's Office, fire and life safety officials, and other state and county agencies to review current practices and provide a venue to discuss and problem solve around school safety matters. Since 2000, the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services has organized a school safety training forum for K-12 administrators, counselors, licensed staff, law enforcement, and school security officers. The forum provides presentations from national and state experts on bullying interventions and prevention, the effects of trauma on youth and adults, mental health training, the DARE program, drug and alcohol prevention, emergency planning, safety drills, and a variety of related topics. Throughout the year, the Department of Criminal Justice Services provides additional trainings on threat assessment teams, cultural diversity, suicide prevention, school crisis response and recovery, as well as additional topics. The Department of School Administration sends several department members, which includes the Division Emergency Manager, along with members of the York-Pocosin Sheriff's Office, to these trainings each year. School-based administrators also have the option to attend these trainings. As required by the Code of Virginia, every school is required to have a team of professionals with the ability to assess reported threats and develop a course of action to address the situation. The division has an oversight threat assessment team, which is composed of law enforcement, human resource department officials, building administrators, student services specialists, and central office staff to provide training and review the practices and procedures surrounding school threats and their assessment teams. Under the guidance and supervision of Dr. Shandor, the York County School Division Executive Leadership Team ensures collaboration between all school board office departments and creates a division-level response team to assess crisis and emergency situations while providing support to school-based staff in handling incidents. Concerning safety, we engage in a three-part process to review our procedures. Division staff engage in purposeful planning and attend training to expand our knowledge and skill set and to anticipate potential situations and problems. We use this information to manage and direct the actions of our division safety committee and support our school-based safety management teams at each school. In the evaluation process, we review and analyze our practices with law enforcement and fire and life safety. To ensure we receive feedback from all stakeholders in our school community, we will be facilitating several focus groups this year to have discussions with parents, students, and staff concerning safety concerns and matters.
If I could just interject on, I know you saw this slide earlier in the presentation, but there's 2 points that I wanted to make on this one. Number one, we're really fortunate in the school division. We have good kids who have teachers and administrators that have built strong relationships with them. So we're really fortunate that our students share information with our staff. They do this at the elementary level, they do this at the middle school level, they do it at the high school level. They share information with bus drivers, they share information with our SROs. So we're really fortunate to have that. And then the second point I want to make is, you've heard me say this for the last couple of years, our relationship with the York-Pocosin Sheriff's Office is off the charts. We know Lieutenant Hahn, who's sitting back here. All of our principals communicate very closely with him and his team and our executive team, Dr. Butler and Ms. Parr, that work closely with him. You know, we're always working on preventative measures to help situations, and then, you know, in the event we have to respond to crisis situations, we move around that. So I just wanted to interject that.
Thank you for this opportunity to provide updates from the school administration department. I am available for questions at this time.
Questions from board members?
Just had one, just curious more, this 800 megahertz radio, does that go straight to the 911 center?
There's a feature so that schools can, if you turn the radio, you can go directly to the 911 center. However, it's scanned, the radio is scanned during the day by law enforcement and by fire life safety officials. So every communication we have in the division, it is heard by those officials at the same exact time.
So it could go straight to law enforcement and bypass 911? Is that the way that?
Well, no, the officials are listened to. Now, if there's a need to call 911,
Yeah, right,
you know,
right.
we tell schools they need to call 911.
So you can-
But if there's an emergency and they can't, again, you can turn the radio to 911 so you
You
can.
can, all right.
And law enforcement in turn can turn to their channel, I think, and listen to them too.
So one of my concerns has always been the open door policy during the mornings at the high schools, during arrival and dismissal. Any plans or discussions on maybe changing that or looking into that? Or-
I think one of those things, if you were to have one access point, you've got 1,200-1,400 people lining up to get in, you certainly don't want that. So I don't know that that's, I personally don't think that's something you want to look at.
I've mingled with the students and walked right into the Raptor before. So I would rather have 14 people waiting if it meant that the students were going to be.
It wouldn't be 14 people, it'd be
Safe.
1,400. And then you're putting them out in an area where they're all confined in one area, so I don't know. But I think that's some discussion they can certainly have in their safety meetings.
Go ahead, Eric.
Right, because part of the evaluation process, that is an area that we are looking at and addressing with our school administrators. I know that every school is responsible for having a plan for when students are arriving, you know, who's going to be on duty, who's going to provide monitoring and support at all entrance ways, and having that conversation and reviewing, because again, if there's some areas that need to be addressed or shored up, that's something that each school-based team is required to do, and so that is a conversation we are having at the school level.
Mine centered two questions. I'm going back to the secure entry, and I know some schools don't have that. And we talked about that once before, I just can't remember the number of schools who have the new
You mean
security
the security
vestibules. And those that don't, and our timeline, because those that have it is very, very nice. So what's our timeline for getting the other schools?
Dr. James, you
Sure,
want
I can certainly ask that, Ms. Haywood. Currently, we have 8 that have been completed. We have 5 at the elementary level, 2 at the middle, and 1 at the high school. Going forward this summer, I just worked with Mr. Dolak today and a gentleman from a contracting company to look at Dare, Seaford, and Bruton High School, to see if those could be converted. And we got positive news. We're still working through that process. So we're looking at those 3. And at Tabb Elementary School, as a part of that renovation, and we changed the front of the school, that will include a security vestibule, just like we did at Waller Mill and just like we did at Yorktown Elementary.
Magruder.
And Magruder.
That's a nice
You're
entry, yeah.
you're exactly right. So what does that leave us as? You know, the Grafton Complex is one that we're most concerned about. We're working with the architect now to really reorient that entire office on both sides. That one is not as easy as Dare, Seaford, or Bruton High School, just by the way those buildings are designed. Tabb High School is one that will need an architect to get involved to really relocate the offices to make it easier. Because as you know now, at Tabb High School, when you go to the main office, that's through the commons area, which is a high traffic area throughout the school day as students move from one side of the building to the other. So we have some that are more challenging. We're working with architects now to redesign those and get those done. And beyond that, hopefully we'll get those others done this summer. We're still working with that contract, make sure we meet our requirements with the plans that we reviewed today for those schools I just mentioned.
And then summer of 19, I know we have Coventry and Mount Vernon that are on deck to be completed, correct?
Right, and the Grafton Complex.
Right.
Because they'll be under design this current school year, but that's a total reorientation of those offices.
So all in all, we're looking at 4 or 5 this summer or in 4 next summer.
So again, being proactive, and what are the kinds of things that we can do, and if it's a cost thing, is that something that needs to be looked at early, just throw that out. To Dr. Butler, and I don't know if you're able to speak on it tonight, the results of the survey that you mentioned on page 8, the climate survey. Are you able, do students and staff feel safe in our schools, or what did that climate survey tell you? Are you able to talk about that?
So there's two, so when we get the survey back, there's one that does it consolidates the whole region. So for Region 2, which we're a part of.
Okay.
And so we have that, and then every individual school has one. We don't have one for York County, so
Okay.
Grafton's is separated and pulled apart for its principal, just like York and Taft and Bruton. So what I can say as far as our region for Region 2, there are several components to that survey, and so I can try to make that available to the board, actually, the completed survey that comes out, and you can review all the categories. It's very comprehensive. It's about 128-page report, but they try to be very specific to look at teacher perceptions and student perceptions of, how safe do I feel in this building? Do I feel like adults care about me in this building? Do I feel like discipline practices are consistently applied to all students? Is bullying a problem in our building? And if it is bullying, what type? Is it based off of the clothes I wear? Is it based on racial or ethnic? So they look at all the different components, and then you can look at the ratings. And so it's very comprehensive.
I didn't know, when you look at the survey and what do you take away, was there anything that raises your antenna to say, oh, this is a big concern for us? Or is it a favorable report, so to speak?
With the Bullying Prevention Committee, this meeting, we're using some of that data to look at that, to see, are there some areas that we need to address and look at, because that's always a concern with families. So we do use that because when you look at Bruton High School's data was a little bit different than Grafton, and so you don't want to use the same exact interventions. You want to be very specific in how you address it. So we're trying to teach the building administration teams, how do you use your data that you receive to improve conditions in your building?
So when you make the survey results,
State Department. Ms. Christian.
Oh, yes, and then this summer, James Christian works for the Department of Criminal Justice, and he actually helps coordinate the survey. So I asked him if he would be willing to come in and work with our administrators to provide some training so they can really best maximize the use of the survey.
so when you make the survey results available, are you going to make the district available as well as the individual schools' data available?
I need to check on what there's certain things that the state allows to be released and certain things because of confidentiality of student responses that they don't. So I can find out what's allowed to be released. I know the comprehensive report can be released because they release that annually. I'll look in individual schools and see if that's appropriate for release or not.
And if I could add, last spring we did a teacher working conditions survey. And one of the questions was, the faculty work in a school environment that is safe. 95.2% of the faculty were positive on that question.
Okay, great. That's good to know.
That was part of your briefing at the Board of Supervisors joint session, wasn't it?
Don't think I did. Don't think I did school
Somebody
safety.
briefed that.
That may
I'm
have-
sorry, I didn't hear
I
the
think I've heard that before, that part of that survey. I think somebody's presented that
Somebody
information.
presented it at the joint session with the.
It may have been
I
Dr. Carroll.
remember that.
Dr. George, you have any?
I'm sure.
Not sure who did.
Thank you very much.
Great questions, Mr. Anderson and Ms. Haywood, thank you. One last thing that I wanted to mention too is I like the sign, see it reported. I think we've had an incident here recently where somebody posted on social media and it turned out to not be totally true. People need to realize, or citizens need to realize, it's much more advantageous to report that to law enforcement first, so they can get involved and determine what's going on truthfully. So certainly encourage
I
that.
think that phrase, if you see something, say something, certainly
Yes, very much so.
is something that we need to continue pushing.
Yes. To the hotlines in the sheriff's office, not to social media. Definitely. But thank you very much, Dr. Butler, and those who presented tonight. Great job. Thank you so much. Any other questions from the board or comments, concerns?
A lot of good content.
Very good, very good. So our next regular school board meeting will be on March the 26th, if there's no further comments. Do you have anything else?
I did not.
Just didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right.
Make
No,
sure.
no, you're fine.
We're now stand adjourned. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Tell you what